let's not draw this out any more than we need to, and I'll read a little bit more. Try and get to the end a bit quicker. Yeah, all right. So where last we left off, Hank was being a prick. Nothing new. Peter was being virtuous, and the judge was just watching. At the look of slight triumph on his face, I began to consider again that clause in our Articles of Partnership which might be utilised in dissolving the business tie that bound us together. For down underneath, I knew, lay the direct will to hurt Peter Murray, and I feared that Magda, so slight and gentle and timid, would be wax in those cruelly clever hands, for Hank would stop at nothing. Peter's face, puzzled for a moment at this direct attack, grew slowly white, hopefully with anger. "You're rather unreasonable, Walters," he said, disturbed. "Miss Farrar and I are engaged, and I ask you not to bring her name into this disgustingly silly affair. Whatever your opinion of me, I wish you would honour that request, at least." "Somebody ought to teach you your manners towards your betters," snarled Hank. His hands were shutting and opening and shutting again. Ooh. Punch Peter in the face. I have a feeling someone's going to get punched. I think that's what this story is gearing up towards. "Not my betters," disputed Peter quietly, but with a spirit. "My elders, perhaps." I need to stop looking away from the screen because I keep losing my place. "I'd like to hide you for your insolence," roared my partner, and suddenly swung across in front of me with that heavy fist of his, which I caught just in the nick of time by flinging up my hand against his arm, so that the blow he had aimed at Peter went harmlessly into space. He recovered his balance with an effort and wheeled about upon me, where I sat quietly, alert. "You may be my senior in the firm, Judge Wilcox." Wilcox. Wilcox. Haycox. Yes. No, I won't go there. "You may be my senior in the firm, Judge Wilcox," he cried out at me. He cried out at me with pointed formality. Oh no, okay, Wilcox is the guy who's narrating the story. Wilcox is the judge. Alright, so he's not a creep. He cried out at me with pointed formality, "But that gives you no right to interfere in my personal affairs, any more than that young cub." Peter exclaimed sharply, so that we both looked at him in astonishment. "That girl!" "Where?" whispered Hank in a hoarse undertone. "Oh, at the window. She was staring in at us. At you," Peter replied, his voice also sinking to a low murmur. "Lord, how her hair blazes in the light from our fire." "Didn't I tell you you knew nothing about women, you fool?" whipped out my partner and smiled sneeringly at the younger man. Peter looked at him, his brows a straight line above his narrowed eyes. "She's followed me here," whispered Hank, his low "She's followed me here," whispered Hank, his low triumphing triumphant laugh. Trembled as if with sudden aroused emotion. "Excuse me, gentlemen, if I meet the lady outside. I have a faint idea that she would prefer to see me alone." And he would smirk at us, licking his thick, loose lips with unctuous anticipation. Gross. Hank is gross. Hank is super gross. I exchanged a quick look with Peter. The boy was very pale. Then he strode across the room and stood before the door. "Don't go," he said, barring the way. "Don't, Walters. I tell you, that girl's got it in for you. That girl hates you." A great laugh. Hank's head flung back as it issued thunderously from his pulsing throat. "Hates me? Me? You young whippersnapper, I give you my permission to follow us out and find out for yourself how much she hates me." With that, he plunged at the heavy sweater on a peg by the door, pushed Peter out of his way, and flung out into the chill November night, leaving us staring half-sick behind him. Shut the door, my boy. The night air is penetrating. Peter obeyed slowly. Then he came to the fireplace and stood looking down at me, his blue eyes veiled with some secret, disturbing thought. What's up, boy? Judge, I'm afraid. Husky, fearless Peter is, to such a word. Of what, lad? That strange girl, whispered Peter, and over the pallor of his perplexed young face a greyness stole. I tell you, her hair. Oh, it is the girl who troubles you. Nothing strange in that, I laughed. As for her hair, Peter, I tell you, she isn't one of us, said Peter, that distaste for the unusual, that almost normal men display. She isn't, well, right. The Earl King's daughter, he muttered irrelevantly. Irrelevantly. Why should that disturb you, my boy? If she isn't, we'll have our deeply disappointed friend back again in a short time, and I think perhaps you'd better arrange to be asleep in bed when he comes in to avoid any further quarrelling. Fuck off. He shook his blonde head slowly. Then, with a sudden ejaculation, he snatched for his cap and thrust it down upon his head. He pulled down a lumber jacket and began hurriedly pushing his arms through the sleeves. Why, Peter, you're not going out? I asked inanely. See here, Peter, he's right when he says it's none of your business, and the girl followed him here. That girl means to hurt him if she can, whispered Peter, his blue eyes looking wild in the fire's smouldering flicker. Poppycock, I retorted tartly, for I saw where Peter's mood was leading us both, and the fire looked and felt good to me that cold night. Just the same, I'm going to follow him, he said. I might, didn't he? He said I might, didn't he? Yeah, that's true. You know perfectly well he didn't mean it, I objected lamely. Are you coming or not? Demanded Peter. I'd like to have you along, Judge. And in his anxiety he began helping me into my sheepskin coat with unnecessary enthusiasm. Bless his heart. All right, that'll be part 3. Things are getting interesting. Thanks for watching.